Harriet the Spy by Louise Fitzhugh. Book 1. Chapter 1. Harriet was trying to explain to Sport how to play town. See, first you make up the name of the town. Then you write the names of all the people who live in it. You can't have too many, or it gets too hard. I usually have 25. Sport was tossing a football in the air. They were in the courtyard of Harriet's house on East 87th Street in Manhattan. Then, when you know who lives there, you make up what they do. For instance, Mr. Charles Hanley runs the filling station on the corner. Harriet spoke thoughtfully as she squatted next to the big tree, bending so low over her notebook that her long straight hair touched the edges. "Don't you want to play football?" Sport asked. "Now, listen, Sport. You never did this, and it's fun. Now, over here next to this curve in the mountain, we'll put the filling station. So if anything happens there, you remember where it is." Sport tucked the football under his arm and walked over to her. "That's nothing but an old tree root. What do you mean, a mountain?" "That's a mountain. From now on, that's a mountain. Got it?" Harriet looked up into his face. Sport moved back a pace. "Looks like an old tree root," he muttered. Harriet pushed her hair back and looked at him seriously. "Sport, what are you going to be when you grow up?" "You know what? I'm going to be a baseball player." "Well, I'm going to be a writer, and when I say that's a mountain, that's a mountain." Satisfied, she turned back to her town. Sport put the football gently on the ground and knelt beside her, looking over her shoulder at the notebook in which she scribbled furiously. "Now, as soon as you get all the men's names down, and their wives' names, and their children's names, then you figure out all of their professions. You've got to have a doctor, a lawyer..." "And a baseball player?" Sport interrupted. "No, someone who works in television." "What makes you think they have television?" "I say they do. And anyway, my father has to be in it, doesn't he?" "Well, then put mine in too. Put a writer in it." "Okay, we can make Mr. Jonathan Fishbean a writer. And let him have a son like me who cooks for him." Sport rocked back and forth on his heels, chanting in sing-song. "And let him be 11 years old like me. And let him have a mother who went away and has all the money. And let him grow up to be a baseball player." "No," Harriet said in disgust. "Then you're not making it up. Don't you understand?" Sport paused. "No," he said. "Just listen, Sport. See, now that we have all this written down, I'll show you where the fun is." Harry got very businesslike. She stood up, then got on her knees in the soft September mud so she can lean over the little valley made between the two big roots of the tree. She referred to her notebook every now and then, but for the most part, she stared intently at the mossy lowlands which made her town. Now, one night, late at night, Mr. Charles Hanley is in his filling station. He is just about to turn the lights off and go home, because it's 9 o'clock, and it's time for him to get ready for bed. But he's a grown-up. Sport looked intently at the occupied spot by the gas station. "In this town, everybody goes to bed at 9:30, Harriet said definitely. "Oh." Sport rocked a little on his heels. "My father goes to bed at 9 in the morning. Sometimes I meet him getting up. And also, Dr. Jones is delivering a baby to Mrs. Harrison right now over at the hospital. Here's the hospital, the Carterville General Hospital." She pointed to the other side of town. Sport looked at a left fruit. "What is Mr. Fishbean, the writer, doing?" Harriet pointed to the center of town. "He's in the town bar, which is right here." Harriet looked down at the town as though hypnotized. "Here's what happens. Now, this night, as Mr. Hanley is just about to close up, a long black truck drives up, and in it there are all these men with guns. They drive in real fast, and Mr. Hanley gets scared. They jump out of the car and run over and rob Mr. Hanley, who is petrified. They steal all the money in the gas station, and then they fill up with gas free, and then they zoom off into the middle of the night. Mr. Hanley is all bound and gagged on the floor. Sport's mouth hung open. Then what? At the same minute, Mrs. Harrison's baby is born, and Dr. Jones says, "You have a fine baby girl, Mrs. Harrison, a fine baby girl. Ho, ho, ho." "Make it a boy." "No, it's a girl. She already had a boy." "What does the baby look like?" "She's ugly." Now, also at this very minute, on the other side of town, over here past the gas station, almost to the mountain, the robbers have stopped at a farmhouse which belongs to old Farmer Dodge. They go in and they find him eating oatmeal because he doesn't have any teeth. They throw the oatmeal on the floor and demand some food. He doesn't have anything but oatmeal, so they beat him up. And then they settle down and spend the night. Now at this very minute, the police chief in Carterville, who is called Chief Herbert, takes a stroll down Main Street. He senses something is not right, and he wonders what it is. "Harriet, get up out of that mud." A harsh voice rang out from the third floor of the brownstone behind them. Harriet looked up. There was a hint of anxiety in her face. Oh golly, I'm not in the mud." The face of the nurse looking out of the window was not the best looking face in the world, but for all its frowning, its sharp dark lines, there was kindness there. "Harriet M. Welsh, you are to rise to your feet." Harriet rose without hesitation. "But listen, we'll have to play town standing up," she said plaintively. "That's the best way." Sport stood up too. "Why don't we play football then?" "No, look, if I just stay here like this, I won't be in the mud." So saying, she squatted on her heels next to the town. Now, he senses that there's something wrong. How can he? He hasn't seen anything, and it's all on the other side of town. He just feels it. He's a very good police chief. "Well," Sport said dubiously. "So, since he's the only policeman in town, he goes around and deputizes everybody, and he says to them, 'Something is fishy here in this town. I feel it in my bones.' And everybody follows him, and they get on their horses." "Horses?" Sport shrieked. "They get in the squad car, and they drive around town until... Harriet!" The back door slammed, and old Golly marched squarely towards them in the yard. Her long black shoes made a slap-slap noise against the brick. "Hey, where are you going?" asked Harriet, jumping up, because old Golly had on her outdoor things. Old Golly had just indoor things and outdoor things. She never wore anything as recognizable as a skirt, a jacket, or a sweater. She just had yards and yards of tweed, which enveloped her like a lot of discarded blankets, which ballooned out when she walked, and she referred to them as her things. "I'm gonna take you somewhere. It's time you begin to see the world. You're 11 years old. It's time you saw something." She stood there above them, so tall that when they looked up, they saw the blue sky behind their head. Harriet felt a twinge of guilt, because she had seen a lot more than old Golly thought she had. But all she said was, "Oh boy!" and jumped up and down. "Get your coat and hurry. We're leaving right now." Old Golly always did everything right now. "Come on, Sport. It won't hurt for you to take a look around too." "I have to be back at 7 o'clock to cook dinner." Sport jumped up as he said this. "Well, we'll be back long before that. Harriet and I eat at 6. Why do you eat so late?" He has cocktails first. I have olives and peanuts. That's nice. Now go get your coats. Sport and Harriet ran through the back door, slamming it behind them. What's all this noise? Sputtered the cook, who whirled just in time to see them flying through the kitchen door and back up the stairs. Harriet's room was at the top of the house, so they had 3 flights to run up, and they were breathless by the time they got there. Where are we going? Sport shouted after Harriet's flying feet. I don't know, Harriet panted as they entered her room, but old Golly always has good places. Sport grabbed his coat and was at the door and halfway down the steps when Harriet said, Wait, I can't find my notebook. What do you need that for? Sport yelled from the steps. I never go anywhere without it, came the muffled answer. Oh, come on, Harriet. There were a great deal of crackling noises coming from the bedroom. Harriet, did you fall down? A muffled but very relieved voice came out. I found it! It must have slipped behind the bed. And Harriet emerged, clutching a green composition book. You must have 100 of them by now, Sport said as they went to the steps. No, I have 14. This is number 15. How could I have 100? I've only been working since I was 8, and I'm only 11 now. I wouldn't even have this many except at first I wrote so big my regular route took almost the whole book. You see the same people every day? Yes. This year I have the DeSanti family. Little Joe Curry, the Robinsons, Harrison Withers, and a new one, Mr. Plummer. Mr. Plummer is the hardest because I have to get into the dumbwaiter. Can I go with you sometime? No, silly. Spies don't go with friends. Anyway, we'd get caught if there was 2 of us. Why don't you get your own route? Sometimes I watch out my window and a window across the way. What happens there? Nothing. A man comes home, pulls the shade down. That's not very exciting. It sure isn't. They met old Golly waiting for them, tapping her foot outside the front door. They walked to 86th Street and took a crosstown bus, and soon they were whizzing along the subway, sitting in a line. Old Golly, then Harriet, then Sport. Old Golly stared straight ahead. Harriet was scribbling furiously in her notebook. What are you writing? Sport asked. I'm taking notes on all the people who are sitting over there. Why? Aw, Sport. Harriet was exasperated. Because I've seen them and I want to remember them. She turned back to her notebook and continued with her notes. Man with ruled white socks, fat legs. Woman with one cross eye and a long nose. Horrible looking boy and a fat blonde mother who keeps wiping his nose off. Funny lady looks like a teacher and is reading. I don't think I'd ever like to live anywhere these people live or do any of the things they do. I bet the little boy is sad and cries a lot. I bet the lady with the cross eye looks in the mirror and just feels terrible. Old Golly leaned over and spoke to them. We're going to Far Rockaway. It's about 3 stops from here. I want you to see how this person lives, Harriet. This is my family. Harriet almost gasped. She looked up at Old Golly in astonishment, but Old Golly just stared out the window again. Harriet continued to write. This is incredible. Could Old Golly have a family? I never thought about it. How could Old Golly have a mother and a father? She's too old for one thing, and she never said one word about them. And I've known her since I was born. Also, she doesn't get any letters. Think about this. This might be important. They came to the stop, and Old Golly let them off the subway. Gee, said Sport as they came up on the sidewalk. We're near the ocean. And they could smell it. the salt, and even the wild soft spray which blew gently across their faces, then was gone. "Yes," said old Golly briskly. Harriet could see a change in her. She walked faster and held her head higher. They were walking down the street that led to the water. The houses, set back from the sidewalk with a patch of green in front, were built with yellow brick interspersed with red. It wasn't very pretty, Harriet thought, but maybe they liked the houses this way. Better those than plain red brick ones in New York. Old Golly was walking faster and looking sterner. She looked as though she wished she hadn't come. Abruptly, she turned in a sidewalk leading to a house. She strode relentlessly up the steps, never looking back, never saying a word. Sport and Harriet followed, wide-eyed up the steps to the front door, through the front hall, and out the back door. She's lost her mind, Harriet thought. She and Sport looked at each other with raised eyebrows. Then, they saw old Golly was headed for a small private house, which sat in its own garden behind the apartment house. Harriet and Sport stood still, not knowing what to do. This little house was like a house in the country, the kind Harriet saw when she went to Watermill in the summer. The unpainted front had some soft gray driftwood. The roof was darker gray. "Come on, chickens, let's get us a hot cup of tea." Old Golly waved from the funny of the little rotting porch. Harriet and Sport ran towards the house, but stopped cold when the front door opened with a loud swoosh. There, suddenly, was the largest woman Harriet had ever seen. "Why, look at here what's coming," she bellowed. "Look at 'em little rascals." Her great, fat face crinkled into large, cheerful lumps as her mouth split into showing a toothless grin. She let forth a high, bubbling laugh. Sport and Harriet stood staring, their mouths opened. The fat lady stood like a mountain, her hands on her hips in a flowered cotton print dress and an enormous hanging coat sweater. Probably the biggest sweater in the world, thought Harriet. Probably the biggest pair of shoes, too. And her shoes were a wonder. Long, long black bumpy things with high laced sides up to the middle of the shin, bulging with the effort of holding those ankles. Their laces splitting into the grins against the whites of the socks below. Harriet fairly itched to take notes on her. "Where'd you get these little things?" Her cheer ran out all over the neighborhood. "This is little Welsh baby? That her brother?" Sport giggled. "No, it's my husband," Harriet shouted. Old Golly turned a grim face. "Don't be snarky, Harriet. And don't think that you're such a wit either." The fat lady laughed, making her face fall in lumps again. She looks like dough, Harriet thought, about to be made into a big Italian loaf. She wanted to tell Sport this, but old Golly was leaning in, all of them squeezing past that mountain of a stomach because the fat lady stood, rather stupidly, in the doorway. Old Golly marched right up to the tea kettle and put the fire under it. Then she turned in a businesslike way and introduced them. "Children, this is my mother, Mrs. Golly." "Mother, can you close the door now, Mother?" "This is Harriet Welsh." "Harriet M. Welsh," Harriet corrected. "You know perfectly well you have no middle name, but if you insist, Harriet M. Welsh. And this is Sport. What's your last name, Sport?" "Rock. Simon Rock." He pronounced it Rock. Simon. Hee hee hee. Harriet felt very ugly all of a sudden. "You're not to make fun of anyone's name." Old Golly loomed over Harriet, and it was one of those times when Harriet knew she meant it. "I take it back," Harriet said quickly. "That's better." Old Golly turned away cheerfully. Now, let's all sit down and have some tea." "Well, ain't she a cute little thing?" Harriet could see that Mrs. Golly was still hung up on the introductions. She stood like a mountain, her big ham hands dangling helplessly at her sides. "Sit down, Mother," old Golly said gently, and Mrs. Golly sat. Harriet and Sport looked at each other. The same thought had occurred to both of them. This fat lady wasn't very bright. Mrs. Golly sat to the left of Harriet. She leaned over Harriet, in fact, and looked directly into her eyes. Harriet felt something like a zoo. "Now, Harriet, look all around you," old Golly said sternly as she poured the tea. "I brought you here because you've never seen the inside of a house like this. Have you ever seen a house that has one bed, one table, 4 chairs, and a bathtub in the kitchen?" Harriet had to move her chair back to see around Mrs. Golly, who leaned toward her motionless, still looking. The room was a strange one. There was a sad little rug next to the stove. Harrison Withers has only a bed and a table, Harriet thought to herself. But since she didn't want old Golly to know she had been peering through Harrison Withers' skylight, she said nothing. "I didn't think you had," said old Golly. "Look around and drink your tea, children. You may have more milk and sugar if I hadn't put enough in." "I don't drink tea," Sport said timidly. Old Golly shot an eye at him. "What do you mean you don't drink tea?" "I mean I never have." "You mean you've never tasted it?" "No," said Sport, looking a little terrified. Harriet looked at old Golly. Old Golly wore an arch expression which signified she was about to quote, "There are few hours in life more agreeable than the hour dedicated to the ceremony known as afternoon tea." Old Golly said this steadily and steadily, and leaned back into her chair with a satisfied look at Sport. Sport looked completely blank. "Henry James," said old Golly, 1843 to 1916, from Portrait of a Lady." "What's that?" Sport asked Harriet. "A novel, silly." "Oh, like my father writes?" said Sport, and dismissed the whole thing. "My daughter's a smart one," mumbled Mrs. Golly, still looking straight at Harriet. "Behold, Harriet," old Golly said, "a woman who never had any interest in anyone else, nor in any book, nor in any school, nor in any way of life, but has lived her whole life in this room, eating and sleeping and wanting to die." Harriet stared at Mrs. Golly in horror. Should old Golly be saying these things? Wouldn't Mrs. Golly be mad? But Mrs. Golly just sat looking contentedly at Harriet. Perhaps, thought Harriet, she forgets to turn her head away from something unless she's told to. "Try it, Sport, it's good." Harriet spoke to Sport quickly in an effort to change the subject. Sport took a sip. "It's not bad," he said weakly. "Try everything, Sport, at least once," old Golly said, as though her mind weren't really on it. Harriet looked at her curiously. Old Golly was acting very strangely indeed. She seemed... Was she angry? No, not angry. She seemed sad. Harriet realized with a start that it was the first time she had ever seen old Golly look sad. She hadn't even known old Golly could be sad. Almost as though she were thinking the same thing. Old Golly suddenly shook her head and sat up straight. "Well," she said brightly, "I think we have had enough tea and enough sights for one day. I think we better go home now." The most extraordinary thing happened. Mrs. Golly leapt to her feet and threw her teacup down on the floor. "You're always leaving! You're always leaving!" she screamed. "Now, Mother," old Golly said calmly. Mrs. Golly hopped around the middle of the floor like a giant doll, She made Harriet think of those balloons blown up like people that bounce on the end of a string. Sport giggled suddenly. Harriet felt like giggling, but wasn't sure she should. Mrs. Golly bobbed away. "Just come here and leave me again, always leaving. Thought you'd come for good this time." "Now, Mother," Old Golly said again, but this time got to her feet, walked to her mother, laid a hand firmly on her bouncing shoulder. "Mother," she said gently, "you know I'll be here next week." "Oh, that's right," said Mrs. Golly. She stopped jumping immediately and gave a big smile to Harriet and Sport. "Oh boy," said Sport under his breath. Harriet sat fascinated. Then they were outside on the street again, having waved to a cheerful Mrs. Golly. They walked along throughout the darkening day. "Boy, oh boy," was all Sport could say. Harriet couldn't wait to get back to her room to finish her notes. Old Golly looked steadily ahead. There was no expression on her face at all.